an idea, thematic ETFs are a market segment that Global X is truly competitive in, and they can add real value. So they were a pioneer of thematic ETFs in the US, and now they're trying to capitalize on the popularity of these products among European investors. In terms of flows, I was just looking before the show, ETF flows in Europe, thematic ETFs have been attracting $7 billion just this year alone.
Right. Well, we look at that a lot, Ksenia, and we see that a lot of that also ESG. So interesting to see that element play in there. Bloomberg reporter Ksenia Galuchko, thank you so much for joining us. Raphael Stern of Invesco Asset Management is still with us. Raphael, is this where we're about to see just a lot of competition? Is this about to heat up a lot in this sort of arms race for getting out these sorts of ETFs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in the middle of that already. And I'm not surprised to see U.S. players looking to enter the European ETF market. Now, in terms of thematics, of course, we've seen about 10% of flows year to date into this category. So about 11 billion so far. We've seen a lot of flows on our own funds, such as the blockchain ETFs, as well as Nasdaq Biotech. So we're well versed in that segment. I think it's going to be a tough entrance for a new player who only focuses on thematics, because in the US, retail investors are the primary ETF users who like those kind of funds, and in Europe, you have a lot of institutional
Are there any gaps, though, that could be of interest, that there is a lot of institutional interest in Europe that would be a good area for Global X or even Invesco to offer?
Absolutely. I mean, there's insurance, there's pension, and other institutions that are just now starting to adopt to the use of ETFs. So there's an absolute market demand there, and there's certainly, given that there's thematics, there's almost an unlimited number of things that you can come up with, which obviously change as technology evolves, as various businesses change. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the space. You will have a mix with ESG on top of thematic benchmarks, and investors essentially decide which ones survive.
Raphael, I know we were just talking about ESG and fixed income, but what about some more of these more odd, more sort of out there thematic in fixed income? Is that something we could see more of?
Yeah, I think there's obviously there needs to be investor demand. So when we think about new products, we need to find demand first, and then we think about how to best implement with liquidity in mind. And in fixed income, if you ignore liquidity, you're going to run into problems once a product starts to take off. So I think there's going to be certain limitations as to what we can do to make sure a product is implementable. But having said that, there are certainly a lot of areas that are of interest to us, and you will see a lot of innovation coming from Invesco.
I do feel like bond ETF liquidity is something we're constantly worrying about. In this space, or really beyond, are there really any products that investors should be wary of because of underlying liquidity issues?
Yeah, I think there are certainly index design that has to be taken into account, and if you have a concentrated benchmark in illiquid securities, you may run into problems if you have starting to have a very, very large product. And market conditions like we've seen in March, April are a testament as to which products are able to survive that kind of volatility. So we take the product design and benchmark development very seriously. We have to turn down some ideas that sounded great on paper, but were not practical from an implementation and liquidity standpoint. So I think every issuer has a responsibility to make sure that what they believe is a good product is actually also good for investors.
Right. Well, not only did they survive the pandemic, they also thrived. We saw a lot of flows into fixed income this year. Raphael Stern, thank you so much for joining us. Invesco Asset Management, head of EMEA PM, and global head of fixed income ETF and index strategies. That's it for this week's Bloomberg ETF IQ. We'll be back with more next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. London. This is Bloomberg.
This is a difficulty, a challenge which needs government response.
The Fed is really pleading for fiscal relief. I believe it's essential.
The American administration is about to change, but the clock will not simply be rewound.
How fast could we go to underserved communities and pull people into the middle class for the first time?
There's a period of, I think, great uncertainty and great risk.
Our city need to be ready for the convergence of the physical and digital worlds.
We need to use our recovery stimulus to invest in the clean and digital technologies of the future.
The question is, what direction are we pointing our economies? We're going to point towards sustainable growth.
It's the most important mindset to break, is that there's a trade-off between a green recovery and an economic prosperity.
We're looking back at the 2020 Bloomberg New Economy Forum. Now in its third year, this annual summit brings together leaders in business, politics, and policy from around the world to discuss the most pressing issues facing the global economy. Now, due to one of those issues, the COVID-19 pandemic, the 2020 event was held as a virtual town hall, and it focused on the challenges of rebuilding a new economy in the wake of the virus crisis, one that's inclusive and sustainable for all. To lead us through the program, here's my Bloomberg colleague and forum co-host, Scarlett Fu.
Thanks, Carol. The coronavirus pandemic is the single biggest threat to the health of the global economy, and many believe it's exposed a deep sickness in society: inequality. Central banks have devised policies to keep capital markets liquid and prop up asset prices. But can these institutions use their tools to build a more equal society? Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen and former Bank of England Governor Mervyn King discussed the challenge.
Monetary policy has its limits, and the effective lower bound is a serious constraint. And the notion that the Fed can do all that is required at this point to support the economy is just wrong. And the Fed is really pleading for fiscal relief. I believe it's essential. I think the Fed has been less successful in lending to small businesses than creating some impression of unfairness that is on the side of big companies and on Wall Street. This is something that's very